Welcome to the Boxing Gossip channel. For new viewers, please take the time to hit me on Twitter at Boxing Gossip, to add me as a friend on Facebook in the link below in the description. And if you're new, as always, please subscribe to the channel. I want to give a shout out to one of those subscribers, to Mikey, who sent me this information, which was very, very good of him. According to Boxing Scene, and the article quotes the individual involved, Vijender Singh has parted ways with Frank Warren and with Queensbury Promotions, and he will now be distancing himself from their operations. From my own personal perspective, I believe that this is a big blow to Frank Warren. Vijender Singh, he is possibly not a name who too many UK fans are familiar with, but he's a guy who's been fighting on several Frank Warren undercards here in the UK, and headlining certainly at least one very notable event in India that was run and promoted by Frank Warren's operations, as I understand it. Vijender Singh is a huge figure in India. He's one of their very major sporting stars over there, having won Olympic gold medals in the amateurs, and having now turned professional. Now you can go and find the article on Boxing Scene yourself. I'm not going to quote from it directly because I don't think that makes the best viewing. But in the article, Vijender Singh and his team give an indicator that the reason that they have broken ties with Frank Warren is because they believe that Frank Warren and Queensbury Promotions have not fulfilled their contractual obligations, and they make reference to the delivery of fights in the UK and internationally and globally as well, which kind of ties in with the fact that Vijender Singh has been pretty inactive, actually. Vijender's one of these guys. He turned into the pros at not a young age. He's not someone who's turned pro at 19 or 20. He's already in his 30s. He's actually 31. And he had a relatively big fight. This was the fight that he headlined in a stadium in India. In fact, he headlined two big fights in stadiums in India in July of 2016 and of December 2016. But since then, he's been ever so slightly inactive. There were rumours that he would fight on the undercard of the recent Frank Warren bill in Leicester, but that fight fell apart. And I haven't really heard too much in the way of announcements for him. I don't know why they haven't persisted with keeping him active and keeping him boxing in India, and it apparently appears to have led to this split. So first things first, whilst on the face of it, from a UK fan perspective, this isn't a big blow to Frank Warren's stable, I believe that Vijender Singh was one of those guys who had the potential to create a huge amount of hype in Indian boxing and potentially be viewed as a bit of a national hero, a celebrity, almost a sort of David Beckham-like figure over in India. He was selling out stadiums and being involved in very large events there when he fought Kerry Hope and Francis Checker at relatively earlier stages of his career, his 7th fight and his 8th fight. And whilst I don't believe that he was necessarily en route to being an elite world champion, he was very much a talent. Beating a guy like Kerry Hope in your 7th fight and knocking out a guy like Francis Checker in your 8th fight, that's not at all bad form for a professional boxer. So I think it's unfortunate. I think it's a missed opportunity globally, and I did question why they were putting Vijender Singh on that undercard in Leicester. I know building him in the UK and building his profile over here can't do any harm because the UK is a huge country for boxing right now. But realistically, the guy had just headlined two big events in India. Did he really need to go and sit on a Tyrone Nurse undercard? I can't remember who the headline guy was in Leicester now. It might have been Tyrone Nurse, or, regardless. But that bill was a very good bill, but it wasn't a huge name bill. Did a guy like Vijender Singh, an Olympic medalist, etc., need to be hidden somewhere on the undercard against a guy like Jermaine Smile? And to be fair to him, Smile fought on that bill and put up a fantastic fight. But regardless, it just seemed that momentum was slightly lacking for Vijender Singh. If you look at his 2016, he fought December 2015, March 2016, April 2016, May 2016, so they had really good momentum. Then he fought July 2016 in a big fight in India, December 2016 in a big fight in India, and you kind of felt that this year in 2017 you'd like to see him going on to bigger and better things, and maybe keeping that momentum and stepping up levels of opposition, and that hasn't happened, unfortunately. I think it is a blow to Frank Warren. What Frank Warren seems to be very good at is turning pure boxers who are not necessarily the biggest celebrities and the biggest personalities into world champions. You know, he's done a very good job in getting a guy like Terry Flanagan to be a world champion, like Billy Joe Saunders to be a champion, like Liam Smith to be a world champion. He's done a very good job getting Liam Walsh to be in a world title fight. What he seems to struggle with are the guys who are celebrity type personalities as opposed to pure boxers. So a few examples, you know, I'm a huge fan of Ultratech Sports Channel. I check him out on a regular basis and recommend his channel to all you guys who are watching. He was speculating about the way Frank Warren had made a bit of a missed opportunity with Prince Patel. You know, Prince Patel, whether you like him, whether you hate him, whether you think he's any good at boxing, he was certainly a character. He was certainly a public figure. He was a guy with a large following. And Frank Warren kind of let him become inactive, fly under the radar, and eventually they split. You could say the same for Romeo, who was another guy who was a divisive character and who maybe wasn't the best pure boxer in the world, but was an undefeated prospect coming up. He was making noise. He was developing a reasonable public persona. And now he's dropped off the face of the planet. You know, he's kind of been lost, whether he's given up the game, whether he's been frozen out, I don't know. But these kind of characters seem to be... and I'm not saying Vijender Singh's a character in that sense. Vijender Singh is not like a difficult personality from what I understand. But he is someone with a big profile. So he's someone who's probably going to be pushing for big fights and big money at a relatively early stage of his career, you know. It might be his 9th fight or his 10th fight, and he's probably going to be expecting a big title shot in a big stadium against a big name opponent for big money. And you know, I wonder if guys like Prince Patel, Romeo, because they've created this public image, they too are pushing those sort of questions towards Frank Warren. You know, Frank seems to have excelled himself with the slightly quieter fighters who are very good fighters, like Liam Walsh and Terry Flanagan, but they're possibly guys who fly under the radar. They're possibly guys who aren't earning the absolute megabucks of the sport, and perhaps they're not pushing for the absolute megabucks in the sport. I don't know. It's not something that I have complete awareness of. But it's a blow to Frank Warren. I think they've done some pretty good work actually with Vijender Singh, and you would have liked to have seen them continue that and maybe develop him certainly on the route towards a world title shot. And I think from a UK boxing perspective, this is actually relevant because now Frank Warren's got this BT Sports deal. There's going to be a lot of fighters on Matchroom and on the Sky side who are potentially considering making that jump. You know, the very top fighters in the sport, the Anthony Joshuas, the James the Gales, at this point I believe they're better off on Sky. But I believe there's a debate about the second tier of fighters. If you were a Rocky Fielding, if you were a... I'm struggling to think of names immediately. If you were a Rocky Fielding, if you were a Lawrence Okoli, you know, if you were one of those sort of guys who's maybe a guy hopefully on the up, thinking they've got a big future in the sport, but not at this stage a headliner, not at this stage a pay-per-view fighter or anything of that nature. If you're one of those guys, I think there's a genuine debate that you could potentially be better off on the Frank Warren side, because over there you get the opportunity to be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, whereas on the Matchroom side you're competing for Eddie Hearn's affection with the likes of Joshua and De Gale and Kell Brook, etc. I mean, Dillian White, for example, repeatedly complains. Apparently he was complaining today on Facebook that you know, Hearn never even returns his calls. So if you're one of those type of figures, you're maybe considering going over to Box Nation, to Frank Warren, to BT Sports. And I think if you're sensible, you're going to be looking at what happens to people who are on the Frank Warren side. So you'll be looking at Terry Flanagan, who has the longest undefeated run in British boxing at present, and who has multiple title defences. And you'll kind of notice how his profile is still very low, and he's still not in glamorous fights. You're going to look at a guy like Tyrone Nurse, who was getting some traction on the Matchroom side and has now gone over to Box Nation, fought on quite a low-key bill and lost a draw. You're going to look at a guy like Josh Warrington, who was headlining arenas for Matchroom. It's going to be a key acid test for their stable this weekend. You know, if you were a guy like Prince Patel or Romeo, maybe if you're a young upstart coming through, you're going to be looking at those sort of guys and wondering what happened to their career. You know, and if you're an amateur sensation who's won gold medals and you want to be fighting for world titles in your 10th fight, maybe you're going to be looking at Vijender Singh and you're going to be questioning why he left Frank Warren. It's very, very early stages for this BT Sports deal, and I sincerely hope it's a success for Frank Warren, because I believe it'll be good for boxing and good for the boxers if it is, and also from a fan perspective it'll be brilliant. But I do have some concerns about the number of fighters who seem to sign and then maybe fall down the pecking order. And guys like Prince Patel, guys like Vijender Singh are examples of that, because they're potential stars. Now, I don't know what's gone on behind the scenes here. For all I know, Frank Warren was bending over backwards and, you know, Vijender Singh was making huge demands that were simply not viable. There's two sides to every story. But it appears from the article on Boxing Scene that whatever the rights or wrong, there was not an arrangement that was mutually beneficial between the two parties at this stage, which would lead to why Team Singh have looked to terminate the contract. So I think it's a relevant piece of news. It's certainly a relevant piece of news if you're a fan of Vijender Singh and if you're following his progress. And it's certainly a relevant piece of news if you're one of these people like myself who's interested in seeing whether certain fighters may be inclined to switch between the two camps. Let me know your thoughts to this. Let me know your reaction. Is it something that you care about? Drop your comments in the section below. As I said at the start of the video, if you're new to the channel and you haven't tuned in before, do take the time to hit subscribe so you can check out all of my other videos. And if you've enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up button to support the video and try and get some more visibility to it. Many thanks indeed for watching, guys. As always, appreciate